Referring you back to those wonderful years of from last week. When I ask you to consider what do human emotions amount to beyond the categories that I defined of a mortal marking off his territory, his or her, their mate or her mate, and their social, dominant / submissive position in the human hierarchy, the metabolic hierarchy. All right. Me asking you to consider that is in no way to diminish what can be the beauty, obviously the power, and sometimes the joy of human passion. It was not to some way to cut it down into perhaps harsh-sounding categories that seem to leave out certain poetic possibilities, certain spiritual corners and nooks that many people want to believe are there. But the reason I gave you such a definition, the reason I conjured up these categories and divided it up into the three divisions that I challenge you to find exceptions to, is to try and encourage you to study it, to try and afford a new kind of understanding to what human emotions are. Now, for a long time, many of you have heard me in passing make some comment, and I even wrote it in some of those public books, that human emotions shouldn't even be called emotions, and I'm not going to fool with them, I'm not going to talk about them. That is nothing original with me. Not that anybody understood it in exactly the same way prior to this, but let me point out that as long as human history has been recorded, human thought, human speech, there have been these continuing attempts to divide emotions. Worldwide, time-wise, I guess one of the greatest divisions that peoples have used, that life has used through the mouths of men, have been this attempted division into the love of man and the love of God, the love of Allah, the love of the gods. Now, all of you have heard that. You hear it in Christianity, but if you don't know it, you can find it in Hindu literature. You can find it everywhere. You can find it in mythology, that there is some kind of, quote, love of man, human love. And then there is the love of the gods. Even if this sounds new, all of you have heard it so often that it probably does not even register with you. But now I ask you, let's take a couple of seconds. What in the world has life been trying to say? Or if we were ordinary people, we'd be asking, what is it the man thinks he's trying to perceive? Why is it that people are driven to believe that there is a division of some kind? It has even been referred to as carnal love versus spiritual love. Poets have even tried to refer to some sort of romantic love, now just twixt humans, romantic love as opposed to, in some way on the paper they seem to curl their lip up and snarl and say, lusty passions. Of course, those kind of poets I never did trust anyway. They used to get their hair done. I know all about them. They wore lacy underwear, but we won't go into that. There is within man, there is within the consciousness of man, seeping out through the very pores of life's own nervous system, a belief. And all beliefs are based upon some reality, remember. It may be into another dimension that is not as clear as could be here to 3D sight. But that there is a feeling that human emotions, as opposed to human intellect, as opposed to the apparent life of the body, if you could separate it, that the emotions in some way are liable to be seen as, or should be seen as, having two distinct categories. What is it that humans believe that they're saying? What is it that you believe that you have heard in the past that would differentiate human love and godly love? What do people think they mean? And I don't mean just religious, fundamentalist fanatics of some kind. But what is it they believe they mean when they say there is a carnal love and a spiritual love? What is it they think they mean? At least 1.5 times in the last few years, I have given a passing verbal brush with pointing out or hinting or asking you to consider that the blue circuit, as I've been calling it, the blue system in general, could almost be seen as a kind of bridge between the red and the yellow. They could be seen as a kind of attempted transition, if not a successful, if not a completed transition between one stage of human life and another stage. But in the midst of all of this, in the midst of me continually saying that I'm not going to talk about emotions, as you call it, and I'll make jokes about it, and I'll let Kyroot write his little smart-aleck remarks about human emotion, and I apparently stick fun at hillbilly music, sad poetry, even so-called allegorical religious poetry and prose, because it is always, as I pointed out, it always, if you can see it from a certain view, it always is centered around self-pity, anger, so-called negative emotion, all of it, religion. And so I have, by and large, even if you didn't catch me at it, I've sort of played like, to hell with it, who wants to deal with it, it's of no importance and everybody's got it all wrong. You need a better clinical understanding of what human emotions are. That was the general purpose that I gave you those categories and challenged you to find any exception there too. But you need to have more of a clinical attitude toward what seems to be, what is apparently, what is easily observable historically and contemporaneously, what seems to be the operations, the total operations of human emotion. It's not to be pessimistic. It's not to say that people are no good. All of you know better than that, but now even you out of downtowners. It's not that humans are making a mistake and are on the wrong track. But human emotion, as it is generally accepted, is always liable to the same binary influences as stomach disorders, as the kinds of so-called psychological disorders that make humans' views and opinions flip-flop, and that in those areas of life's body on this planet wherein such statistics are kept, it is something like 8.5 out of 10 homicides are committed amongst those who are either in a family or a sexual relationship. So when you find a dead man, the first thing to look for is his wife. If not that, his mother, his sister, his daughter. Find a dead woman, find the husband. 8.5 times out of 10, you got him. It's that simple. You need a very unusual, continuing perception of what, in the everyday sense, human emotions consist of. And just because I gave a test for 1 week does not mean that should be the end of you using my great declaration that all ordinary human emotion can be classified as simply marking off. 3 great markings, and instead of an animal pissing, humans do it in other ways, although that doesn't cut out the possibility that such things may go on in Alabama that I don't know about. But you have humans through other means marking off their personal territory, all the way from on the expressway to your feeling that people are getting too close behind me. A car gets too close, and just as automatic as you breathing, you stick up your finger so the guy behind you will see it. Or you get tense when a car switches lanes and it gets too close. Or you find that you're talking to someone for the first time and you're beginning to feel very uncomfortable, and you don't analyze what, but it would be one possibility that the person is standing closer to you than you like, than you are made to like. They're speaking too loud. They look you dead in the eye all the time they're talking. And what you're accustomed to, what you're wired up to do, is you talk, and you look, and then you look off, and then you talk, and you look off. You are defending your territory. It is a feeling of I'm attempting to mark it off. And I could go into many other things, and I repeat to you again, we're not talking about some kind of psychological, some kind of acquired sense of territory. Even though I made the joke last week that out on the West Coast, you people could think of it as being your space. You people know that that's the kind of psychological babble that is fairly prevalent now. But we are talking about a molecular activity. We're talking about an absolute, if we were going to talk about, instead of mind and body, if you're going to think of it as being a neuro/slice muscular, and we're talking about the entire muscular and nervous system structure biologically, molecularly, reacting to a defense of territory. By you being alive, there's a certain kind of territory that you are going to feel as though is yours. And people do it through emotions. They do it through giving some guy the finger that's getting too close behind you. You do it by getting tense when somebody gets too close to you, when someone looks you in the eye too long when they're talking. Sexually, I don't see why I should spend over 2 or 3 seconds. I've already pointed out the great, wonderful world of homicide, how closely connected that is sexually. The marking of one's position, anything that you cannot see immediately into the marking of territory, the rest of it is the marking of social position. And it can be seen on a somewhat more refined level as establishing within the dichotomy in the 3D world of being either submissive or dominant within a general so-called social structure. But I repeat again, this is not psychological. It is right now, still, I'm in the minority, of course, but the world in general still speaks of such things as attempting to establish oneself, one's social position. There's been many books written in the field of psychology and sociology, and just casual observers of the human condition have attempted to show that people put bumper stickers on their car to try and show who they are. The way people dress is an attempt to in some way establish their social position, etc. But it is not psychological. That is a childish, although up until now, an acceptable description. That is not what's going on. It is biological. It is absolutely as biological as a dog, as an orangutan, as a chimpanzee establishing its place in the pecking order of its pack. And it is done. It is done throughout the animal kingdom. I repeat again for tonight, there is no perfect parallel between other creatures on this planet and man. But in every creature on this planet that you could loosely say has more than a singular circuit, they have a social hierarchy. I assume all of you know that. We're just accepting, I hadn't investigated every little creature, we just accept everyday knowledge in the field of zoology. That there is an immediately established, almost as soon as the young creatures are born, a pecking order. That you know who you're subservient to and you know who you can dominate unless you're on the bottom. It's not accepted as anything unusual, but I am telling you that's exactly what goes on with bumper stickers. It is not psychological. That is what goes on with clothes. Women should be able to hear this faster than men. It's no big deal, but women do have some understanding somewhere of that. But the way you dress, the way you do your hair, it is not something that you've acquired. You can look back, and it seems as though, as I have even pointed out, that your taste apparently was solidified somewhere shortly after the age of puberty. Shortly after you begin to get horny and have some idea of how you might get unhorny, it seems as though your taste were solidified. And so you could look back and you could say, if you're ordinary, that yes, there's the power of the environment, because it's not only me. I still think that long hair on a man with a little grease in it and comb back in ducktails looks neat. I don't care what social customs are prevalent now. I still think it's neat, and I'm not alone. I went back to my high school reunion, and we sat around after a few beers, we were talking about it, and all the guys agreed. So it wasn't just me. It was some kind of social, some kind of psychological phenomenon, and it's not true. It is biological. Always. It is always molecular. That is what is almost impossible for ordinary consciousness to keep in its consciousness. That is, that the attempt to establish, I should be more specific, the necessity for each person to establish where they are in the social order is based upon their own hormones That's what's going on. It could be checked by the blood if somebody knew how to do it. But you establish, you accept it, of who you seem to shuffle your feet and bow your head to. You can walk into a store and meet with a salesman. As soon as the salesman seems to look up, or you may just get in the door of a store and you immediately, you know it, of whether you're going to be submissive or you're going to be dominant. You go to get your car fixed. There may be a situation to get your car fixed no matter where it is. You may feel submissive. You go to a dentist, go to a doctor. Part of it is you must be submissive. As I point out to you on the other hand, that is one of the reasons I would suggest to you that people enter certain professions is not for the money, not for the prestige. It is their own hormonal balance forces them into a position where part of the apparent occupational arrangement is they're dominant. You make it an appointment with a doctor, it's just assumed that he's going to dominate you. If anybody doubts that, go into a doctor and try to be the dominant party. Or an attorney. Any other reasonable profession or calling. But it is almost impossible. It is impossible with ordinary people to keep any awareness that this necessity to mark off one's position is absolutely, as opposed to psychological, it is absolutely biological. It is as much in your ordinary blood balance, it is in the secretion of your own hormones, as much, it's been determined as much as your height, the color of your hair, and etc. You need to have a clinical, continuing awareness of this. It in no way diminishes emotion. It is in no way to try and tell you that ultimately emotions have no place, because they certainly do, or we wouldn't be here. None of this would make any sense. If this was strictly some intellectual pursuit, ultimately, you'd be like a man that may have a new interesting map, but without emotion, you'd never have the desire to go anywhere. You wouldn't travel. Also from last week, my description of consciousness, if you recall, that I mentioned as a creature that would have multiple circuits, sufficient number, properly structured, so that one could temporarily dominate another. Now, I brought that out last week of an updating of what consciousness could be described as, not to theoretically entertain, but to tell you, I want to tell you now, it is of practical significance. If you hear anything, if it was enough that it stuck with you, or now me attempting to reinforce it a week later, that everything that goes under the title human consciousness, which on a nice warm day, everyone can say from one view that that's the only thing that distinguishes me from an oak tree or from my dog, is human consciousness. And what is it? I'm telling you, I'm giving you one description that is original. It is original not just for me, but it's original for this time. That you have got to have circuits sufficient in number, properly structured, so that one can temporarily dominate another. That is what gives the illusion of freedom. That is what can drive ordinary consciousness into a kind of short circuit, or almost a cul-de-sac of trying to, just under its own locomotion, to try to get to a spot, and it asks, why am I doing what I'm doing? Including, why am I asking myself, what am I doing right now? All right, I'll stop doing it. But is that me wanting to stop doing it? Or was I just mechanically wanting to stop doing it because I was tired of this? Am I tired of this, or am I willing myself to be tired of this? Well, right now, can I will myself not to be tired of this? If that is too obtuse, remember from last week, how is it that suddenly I am so tired from running today, I think I'll quit? And it's as though another notion, another idea, another viewpoint can override this apparent tiredness, this almost instantaneous, this almost completely accepted feeling right then that, well, when I get to this corner, I'm just going to cut a mile off today. All the reasons. It may rain, I didn't get enough sleep, I'm getting kind of a pullback here in my big old thigh muscle, and then, as though from somewhere else, it's like a message, nah, go on. So it's like one desire, one motivation overrode another. But if you use ordinary means, if you use an ordinary approach, you'll go round and round and round. And that's why I came up with this description that I did, which is proper for the time. It is one circuit, having the proper structure and the proper number within the creature under question, is one circuit being able to temporarily override another. That is consciousness. But if you pursue that, some of you shouldn't take you but a few inches, maybe a few feet. To see that gives rise to all sorts of accepted illusions of freedom. The illusions of a conscious and an unconscious mind. The illusion of having some sort of potential will, and then having this kind of will that you picked up somewhere, like from your parents' mistreatment, or from you having grown up as a stray in a kennel. And all of that. Is sorely lacking. It is still within the classification nowadays that would be called psychological descriptions, as though everything that happened, that each individual had some kind of open conduit right here in their head, in their so-called human consciousness, and that almost everything that happens down here, from overeating to undereating, is caused from something that got into this open sewer, this open sore. You have got to be past that point. You should be past the point of taking this just as gospel because I say it. You should be the point of you find it continually amazing / irritating of how obvious this is and how you can't remember it except once a week when I'm here talking about it. The rest of the time you feel as though, yes, it's me and my personal problems, my psychological problems. Well, now that we cleared up last week, I have an oleo of subjects. Anybody ever look up the real definition of potpourri, which is a synonym for oleo? Potpourri will turn your stomach, but never mind. It sounds, being French, it sounds so poetic. Everybody assumes that, well, it means a eclectic collection drawn from various sources. That is not what it means. Okay, here we go. Oh, one other thing from last week I want to mention. I made the comment that the information that is ultimately most valuable to you is that which apparently originates with you. You remember that? I also want to point out that it may be of ultimate value, the information that seems to finally arise from you. It may be apparently of the ultimate value, but please note it is not the only information of any value, or we would not be continuing to meet, or you would not even be able to hear me say that ultimately the info that seems to be of most value is that which seems to arise from you. Now, that didn't arise from you. So do not take what I said last week as though all of this is meaningless and is some kind of preparation for just a final big moment of personal epiphany. It's not the way it works. But you do, or you should by now, have some kind of continuing suspicion and feeling that there is apparently a process going on of in some way me feeding this information, as valuable as it may seem. But then you should note, all of you have had some small moments that things seem to have come to you that seem to be not necessarily of your own doing, but it was not me staying there telling you, it just seemed to come to you. And it seemed to be of a singular nature. But until then, remember, you can learn from everything. Everything. except perhaps Give Me a Break and Gilligan's Island. Well, no. New York Review of Books, I guess. But other than that, you can learn from anything. Well, the papal silicals and bisilicals. The trisilicals I look forward to. Now on to the oleo parts. Although everyone forgets it, and you should forget it, because it's all misunderstood when you start with, but it is extraordinary for us to be involved with this. It's extraordinary for you to be here, and for it to remain so, you have got to demand of yourself continually extraordinary action and extraordinary thinking of action. This must be a kind of awareness not to be visible to other people. You all should know this by now. It's not that you're going around attempting to work miracles or even succeeding in working miracles. It's not in some way to show off. It's not in some way to begin to believe that you have some kind of treasure that you can take out of your pocket, out of your mouth, out of your head, and you can show it around to people, ordinary people. It's not that. But there has got to be a continuing awareness that you are in an exceptional possible position in the overall grid of things. Even though in some miraculous way I've managed to keep most of you feeling day by day in general that you're still more or less in the midst of the mundane morass. It is still extraordinary to be involved with this. And me saying that you have got to demand of yourself a continuing, extraordinary approach to all of your actions and your thoughts of actions. That go all the way from the smallest thing to cursing every fucking thing when you stump your toe. Or else, if you want to curse, just by all means don't. And then if you get to where you can stop doing it, then scream loud enough for somebody to hear you down the street. Then come up with some kind of new curse. You know, that whatever you stop is, you know, say, you dumb whore-faced bastard. Or you hear bad news, or you find out your car payments, your rent's going up. You know, God damn you, whore-faced bastard. But since that is wired into most people, now we had a small laugh, you will find, of course, that most of you should be involved with a struggle in the other what? Direction. That is not really the problem, being able to, goddamn it, curse. You should not allow, if you were making the right kinds of effort, you should not allow any part of your own apparent partnership to ever catch you up in its own actions, which would be nonverbal thinking of actions in the way in which I'm verbally presenting it now, but to get caught up into any of its expressions of its angers, fears, or weaknesses. And this would hold true if you were alone on a desert island. If I get much more explicit, this could almost pass as being a good homily from the head rabbi, if they engage in such, as being a down-home message from the Pope, if he was capable of it. It sounds like a proverbial Baptist message, but it's not. It's not simply a religious message. But it is a fact. Think, if you were on a desert island and nobody there but you, would your behavior change? Would you curse every time you stepped on a seashell? Nobody's there. Do you think being cut off from, or having your external stimuli somewhat diminished from what it is nowadays, do you think it would finally begin to affect your own, quote, thinking? Would you begin to perhaps entertain the kinds of innate prejudice and hatreds and negative daydreams you've had toward other people, toward your family, toward yourself? Would you then allow it? You can't do it. If you seriously engage, if you seriously entertain your own partnerships, cries out of angers and hatreds toward anybody else, individuals, groups of people, if you entertain its own fears, that yes, they're meaningful. Yes, I am afraid of being sick. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of being embarrassed. It's there, and you're right. It's not psychological. If you're afraid of being embarrassed, it is molecular. It is hormones acting up. It's as real as it can be. It's not imagination. If you say, if you feel as though you do not like being subordinate to certain kinds of people, or in general, or as much as you are, that's real. But you cannot entertain it. You got to imagine, right? I'm on a desert island, I'm here alone, and nobody knows. I can fall down, I look out there and think how far off the beaten track I probably am, and I could lay down here and cry. Well, you can forget about being a 1987 sensitive man or a woman. If you lay down there in the sand and cry, you just... I almost said something naughty, but I won't say that. Shame on you. Or to suddenly be afflicted with a feeling that you are so free, you're so far removed from the rest of human civilization that you can run through screaming out curses at some other group of people, some other race, some other religion, your mother, your first two wives, your last husband. And then, of course, you've got to realize that it is of most use to make this desert island picture a continuing reality with you, that you cannot entertain, you cannot engage in a serious manner anything arising from your own nervous system that passes for thought and feeling. But it'll always be clothed in words, finally, that are an expression from somewhere you think of as being yourself or past psychological impacts and traumas. You cannot listen, entertain, nor accept as serious any expression of anger, hatred, fear, uncertainty, or any weakness. From any definition you want to use, we're all weak in some way. Or from one view, remember, we're all weak across the board. No matter how rich you are, you're going to die. No matter how much control you seem to have and how much domination you seem to have over other people, I hate to tell you, someday you're going to lay down and stink, and people will get away from you. And they'll say, throw that body away, get rid of that person, bury them, or send them off to another state in a carton. Everybody's afraid, etc., etc. Tell me something new. And the kind of funny-wired, unexamined belief that people think that if they get correctly involved with a religion, with a metaphysical system of some kind, that I will overcome all fears. What you're talking about then is the ability to get inside yourself and to change the day-by-day hormonal balance of yourself, to change the molecular structure of your damn blood's what you're talking about. You're not talking about some kind of psychological breakthrough, some kind of metaphysical hocus-pocus trick. That's what people believe it is. But if you could actually do that, you have altered yourself. You have changed the shape of what you are from the inside out. And you have changed it, starting with the neural system. Then it will affect the muscular system. And you may affect the way you look. You may affect the way you feel. You may live longer than you would have previously. Or if you're lucky, you may not live as long. Or according to your view, I guess. But you have got to be extraordinary. You've got to realize it's extraordinary, not you personally. It's extraordinary for you to be caught up into this. It's extraordinary to stay here as long as you've stayed here. It's extraordinary that you can hear anything I talk about. It's extraordinary that it seems to be something new periodically. It seems as though you have grown to yourself. All that's extraordinary, but to keep it that way, you have got to demand that you operate extraordinarily in your actions and in your thinking of actions. As though you're on a desert island and you could get away with murder. You're on a desert island that even the gods don't have chartered. So you can do anything you want to. You can absolutely, literally, and figuratively piss in the wind, curse all the gods, everybody that ever lived, everybody that may live. You can cry, you can throw up, you can build sand castles and you can kick them over. But naughty, naughty, shame, shame if you would do that. And if you will still allow yourself carte blanche to engage in such as that, then you will lose. You will eventually lose the extraordinary feeling of this. And you may try to hang on to it from habit, but it will cease to have any effect on you. You will no longer be in the revolution. You will no longer even be part of it. Another thing about people who are attracted to such activity is this. In a sense, they want to, quote, make it. And they want to, quote, make it outside the routine rules of the herd. I must repeat again, this sounds as though it might be a psychological observation about different types of people. But that's shadow plays, that's hand puppets for children. It is still biological. But it is true, people who pursue such activity as this, not just this, but into diminishing intensities of this. People who want to become enlightened, people that want to become awakened to some other possible state of consciousness or some kind of expanded relationship, they would think, to higher forces. All that sounds as though it's spiritual. There's some kind of troubling of one's individual soul that's crying out for some kind of surcease from the intervention of the gods and good spirits. I'm telling you from another viewpoint, it's people looking for a shortcut. It's people wanting to, quote, make it. And I don't think I'm going to describe what I mean by make it. Fill in, you describe make it any way you want to. Even you and your partnership. Make it. You're going to make it. Make it in life. Make it in areas that seem to be a little outside the normal realm of life, such as this kind of stuff. Metaphysical flim-flam. Spiritual shit like that. But the people want to make it, and they want to do so outside the routine rules that govern the herd. When you were looking for somebody, before you gave up and settled for me, when you were actually looking for somebody, you didn't analyze it, you couldn't analyze it, but your little hormones, the molecular structure of your blood, the wired up operations of your own neural system was crying out, wanting to find somebody that had a shortcut to making it. At least you take this as being some sort of attack. Let me also point out that this could be seen very correctly as a reflection of life's own continuing desire to seek shortcuts for itself and to increase the tempo, to make it outside, beyond whatever we won't speculate or go into, the realms, the range that would be rules for the herd on life's level. What do you think that you are engaged with? What do you think that life has within its own system? Certain little creatures structured in such a way that they turn out to be you and you and you and you and you. You believe it's some great spiritual calling. You believe it's a reaction to your poor childhood. You believe it's because Mercury was in Jupiter or De Soto back in 1952. Well, it's a good thing this is a free country and you can believe anything you want to. Well, it's a good thing this is a free planet and you can believe anything you want to. You can believe that tofu tastes good. You can believe that your vote counts. You can believe that Ford Motor Company has improved the quality of their car. Next paragraph. Let me ask you a question. If you had a choice, would you prefer, now think about this as seriously as you can right quick, if I could grant this kind of wish and gave you these two possibilities, would you prefer to be more powerful, or powerful as the case may be? Would you want to be powerful or efficient? Well, I could give you a erasable tattoo for the week, and to say that if efficiency ain't your name, change ain't your game. But if you'll note, the ordinary functionings of your own so-called consciousness, the total output of your own partnership would say, in response to my first question of would you prefer to be, if I could grant it, to be powerful or more powerful, or would you prefer to be more efficient? And the payoff of this game, as always, is to change. Everybody wants to change. They can call it grow, be better, and etc. But the thing is, they want to fucking change. Now, we established that, or you hadn't been listening for the last 17 years. So, which would you choose from the payoff is to change? Well, certainly it would surely be power, because if I had power, I could will myself to change. Or, of course, if you were really sly, like a good person should be, is I would have the power then to make everybody else straighten up and get in line. I could push them around and make them like it. I could push them around and keep them quiet about it. And then at my leisure, when circumstances were just a little bit more conducive and hospitable, then by God I could change. Think about it again. Are you sure? We're talking about the 3D world as you know it. If the name of the game is change, if that is what we're all driven to, from a bricklayer that stays half drunk 6 days a week, to a would-be priest, minister, rabbi, spiritually inclined person, if change is the name of the game, if that is to be the payoff of one's life, or even if that's not the end, if that is apparently the means of which we live an acceptable life, to be satisfied through attempted change, bettering ourselves in some way, is having increased power of any kind. I'm not limiting. You can fill in, you can describe power and efficiency any way you want to. Having more power, would that not surely be the way to facilitate change? Are you sure? Or would it be to be more efficient? No, it's got to be change. If it's not change, let's change the subject. It's got to be power. Right? Well, I certainly hope someone can answer that for me. As far as power and control, to fall back a little, emblematically speaking, this sounds more like Kyroots, but I'll go ahead and do it. Can any of you find, should be more from a clinical approach now, cold-blooded, piercing, non-biased, it would take, of course, somebody beyond the ordinary constraints of 3D consciousness to do this, but I'll go ahead and talk about it like people could do it anyway, because eventually I'm going to have to talk like that or shut up, make large groups of people go, oh, I could do that. I'll start doing that tomorrow. I've been doing that, I just didn't know what to call it. Now I'll enjoy it even more. Can any of you see that from a certain real view, a clinical view of, as always, I'll pick out three. Priests, bankers, or moguls, and politicians. From a certain view, can you see that priests, a certain view of priests, moguls, and politicians Can you see them in a certain way and realize how little talent and intellect it takes to have control over people? There's no attack on those three callings. But I say clinical view, and a certain clinical view, because humans are not wired up. All three groups, to varying degrees, you would be submissive to in some way or the other. Begging a priest or rabbi, somebody by priest, you know what I mean, religious person, begging for their help, their intervention to cure you, to help your mother, your father, to help you from bad luck. You approach to a mogul with your hat in your hand, as they say, please, sir, a little more fiscal gruel. I need to keep my business going. I need to start a business. To approach the complete world, I mean by a politician, the world of Caesar, have mercy on me, let me live, let me prosper, let me breathe, give me a break, give me some concessions. Apparently, no one thinks about it. Or if they do, what is written, what is observed as it should be in the ordinary world comes out otherwise. It comes out as either praise, glorification, or these areas are seen in a manner apotheostic. Or contrarily, they are attacked vehemently, blasphemously, which is the same thing. But what I'm asking you is a kind of clinical view, a non-involved view, a view that would be approaching a 4D view of the complete panorama of width, depth, and height with a continuation of time, that everything changes, everything becomes in the 3D world its own apparent opposite. Everything apparently comes, everything apparently goes. But where did it come from and where does it go and how did it turn into its own opposite? Something is missing. There's one part of this loop that I can't see. There's a dimension in this reality that evades the spectrum at which my senses vibrate, in which they can pick up vibration. There are things I can't see, hear, feel, touch, smell. And if I can't hear, see, touch, smell, or feel them, forget it. They do not exist. Even those things that you imagine, you had to imagine through one of the senses. But people would imagine, it is accepted that those that have that kind of control, that kind of dominance as priests, religious people, moguls and politicians, that in some way they have earned this, that it takes some kind of ability to do this, some kind of intelligence. And I'm telling you, all you've got to do is look in a certain way. I know. Some of you think that I disabused you of belief in not only Jesus and Moses and God and Santa Claus and the Easter pig. I'm not trying to do it again. But I'm telling you there is a certain clinical view because you don't realize that everyone is in a hardwired mechanical position of submission to varying degrees at varying times in various places to those that seem to exercise external control and power with a small p. But if you look, it then becomes, if a clinical view could be shocking, it should be pleasantly surprising, of how little talent and intelligence, and I'm being magnanimous, I must say, as I always am when dealing with other people. When I'm dealing with my fellow fig and prig man, of how little intelligence and talent it takes to rule other people. I guess we'll turn the tape over. Next paragraph. Have any of you ever tried dark room and hot chocolate? Well, if we were trying to describe a world getting a bit beyond the 3D constraints and still using ordinary terminology, apparently dealing with events that take place on this planet now, then you could say such things as I'm about to say. or at least I could, because I'm about to say it. Here I am. That if we had a, whatever this would be now, we have to be beyond the constraints of the world as we have it now. So look at this as either being in quotation marks like any good occult commentary, or that both words are all in caps like any good would-be mystic from the swamps of Georgia and Alabama. But here it would be that if we had a, quote, real physician, if we were dealing with a real physician, then this so-called real physician would himself have as much effect on his patients as any of his prescriptions. Now, I assume you know that I didn't bring all this up to talk about the medical profession, either here or in 4D land. A real physician. In the 3D world, people believe that a real physician would be not only a miracle doctor, somebody who had now found some secret cure for cancer, assuming that was your particular illness, but a real physician would be like the ultimate guru. It would be, as many young Catholics used to believe, the Pope would be, or that many of the young children of other faiths believe, if I could only meet Rabbi so-and-so, I bet he would know. Just because my father told me to forget about it and to shut up, I bet he would know. Or someone believes if I could only find part of the blood lineage from Buddha himself, I would have found a real physician. They would heal me. They would cure my pains. They would have the information, which would be the prescription. They would have the information that would heal me, make me well, make me whole. They would have drugs, which you can look at as being rituals, prayers, or perhaps even damn drugs for all I care. That would be they would have the information, which would be the prescription. They would have the information that would heal me, make me well, make me whole. They would have drugs, which you can look at as being rituals, prayers, or perhaps even damn drugs for all I care. That would be my physician. That is whom I seek. That is he whom I seek, or she whom I seek. But if we were talking about a real physician in whatever field, if we're talking about spiritual or otherwise, the real physician, him or herself, would have more effect upon the would-be patient than any prescription the physician might have of any drug, whether it be physically, literally a drug, or whether it be a ritual, a task, a chant. What is the situation based upon that, would you imagine, if you had to describe? What is the situation between you and me? How can you make notes and go home and the next day they don't sound as good when you read them? How can you believe that you've understood something until you get out of the room, until we run out of tape? How can you apparently feel very enthused and so glad that you gave up your life of crime or New Age sincerity and got involved with me until it's over and I get in the car and drive off for the night? And then it's, well, go home and watch David Letterman. Go home and cut your toenails. There's the lingering in everyone. It's molecular, biological, neuromuscular, neuroatomic. For those of you in the Navy, neuro-subatomic. Feeling that still there are prescriptions coming from me or perhaps forthcoming next week, next month, that will ultimately be the basis of your cure, of your healing, of your desired for change. I repeat to you how I open this paragraph. A real physician, if we're pushing the constraints of this 3D world, which will always keep you ill and feeling as though you're ill, the real physician would have as much effect upon the patient as any prescription, as any drug he might prescribe, that he might convey. What can you do with that? Of course, in this area, there is no such thing as Medicare. At least I don't accept those damn cards. How can you trust anything that requires the same kind of personal deductions as someone banging your fender? I'm going to leave this paragraph by not just asking you to consider what might be going on twixt you and I, but to see out in the world of the dominant and the submissive, out in the world wherein everything is showbiz. The continuing transfer of energy, the continuing transfer of increasing importance in our day and in our particular place of info as energy, that you've got the situation of people seeking physicians, all the way from psychologists, lovers, gurus, priests, rabbis, politicians, books, and they're seeking a physician to heal them. If they call their primary malady, we're talking about ordinary people now, they may call it physical. I got to find the fat guru, the person that can finally make me get on a diet or got a secret diet where I can eat anything I want to and I'll lose overnight 74 pounds. Or they may describe it to themselves as being psychological. If I can finally find these psychologists, these psychiatrists that I can talk to, they'll be real concerned and want to hear this piss-poor story of mine about my life. They'll sit there and they'll listen, and by the time I can get down to, after I cover the first 25, 27 years, they'll say, wait a minute. And they'll go, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, 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 and I'll go, oh my God, and I'll be healed. Or, that not being capable of flying in your particular hangar, I'll find a book. I'll find a book, and I'll read the book and go, oh my God, now I see. Or if it seemed to be on a more spiritual level, if I can find the great secret master, he who has eyes like a soft warm dove and a voice as melodious as blah, 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 he or she will heal me. But it's always on the belief that this other person, this grand physician, is going to have the miracle prescription or the miracle drug. And I'll leave you by repeating, if we get outside the mundane restraints of here, which you've got to if there was such a thing as a real physician, the real physician, him or herself, would have more effect upon the would-be patient, follower, than any drug or prescription they might have. I'll bring that out not to make some kind of theoretical point or to intellectually intrigue you. As always, I bring it up because it is of some practical use to somebody who has the right hormonal balance. And if you don't, then snap out of it, damn it. Change your hat size or quit wearing your underwear upside down because something is wrong. How dare you continue to come here and think, well, some of this I can't understand. Some of it nobody can understand. If that was the point, I can make it understandable. At least any of you are so far removed from reality on a night like this to think that sometimes I talk and I'm not aware of the fact of how convoluted or how strange or how esoteric or how original seems to be my verbiage, that perhaps I got carried away spinning my own verbal tales and didn't realize that many of you course, everybody that thinks about themselves, they always think, well, I'm not alone. Think that, well, many people got lost and he doesn't realize it. Tut, tut. Tut, tut. Tut, tut cubed. No, it's not my fault. And I know when it's getting too far beyond that which seems to be understandable. But I repeat, I can make it all understandable. I can make it all understandable continuously. Be no more a revolutionist handbook, though. We'd all be then working in the mines. Some time ago, I walked up to a vending machine, and on this machine was a sign, a nice printed, stuck-on sign that obviously went on all the machines from this same source, and the sign had the name of the owner, and the company with the name of the owner, the John Smith Company or whatever it was, vending company. And under it, it said, if this machine is out of order, please contact the owner and do not bang on the machine because he is not inside. Now let me ask you this. Since this elicited such widespread laughter, ha ha ha, then let me ask you this. Why do men continue to bang on their own machines, that is themselves? Do they, beyond your laughter, do they, that is including you at the ordinary level, do they rightfully believe that the owner is inside? And that this banging in some way is going to make him take remedial action to repair the damn thing? That is the nature of men in general wanting to change. That is the nature in general of the attempts people make to change, be it under religious uniforms or psychological guise or just general self-help attempts. You have no choice. There is nowhere else to look with an ordinary consciousness. That even if it were, as per your wired-up belief, even if it were brought on by the sins of your father and mother, hell, they're gone. Or they moved to Tarzana and you don't know their address. At any rate, it's over, and now you're stuck with it. What choice do you have? You end up banging on your own machine continually. That is self-help. That is also what passes as being philosophical self-inquiry. The unexamined life is not worth living. Kick, kick, bang, bang. You know, shake the damn machine. It took my money. I've never gotten out of this machine what I want. But you laughed real heartily at that thing I said about the sign of don't bang on the machine. The owner is not inside. Ha, ha, ha. But people ordinarily believe that the owner of this machine's inside, and the banging on it is some profitable approach. That the owner's in there, in some way you'll finally get his attention, find out that you can speak his language or he'll learn to speak yours, and that the son of a bitch will take some kind of remedial action. He'll repair it. Now you may think this is funny and picturesque again, or some of you from last week may think it's emblematical. It's a simple fact. The bang on the machine as though the owner were inside and had the power to repair it. But he's responsible. And you laughed at the other sign that the owner is not inside that candy machine. He's not in there when I dropped him my quarter. He grabbed it and put it in his pocket. and then put a stick down in where I was going to pull out the handle to get that. He didn't do all that. The machine is out of order. It took my money. And what are you going to do? You bang on it. You curse it if you're ordinary and you know how to curse good. You bang on the thing as though, when you laugh, that suddenly you can hear a voice say, "Oh, what is it?" You holler, get down the little coin hole and holler, "It took my money." And the voice say, "Wait a minute, I own this company. I'll take care of it. What do you want?" You say, "I want a Mounds bar." And here it comes. Why else? Why else do you and everyone else bang on your own machine? This is not just allegorical. This is a real clinical question. Why do you bang on the machine? The only reason you bang on it is you believe the owner's inside and that he can repair it. He can take remedial action. He can get you your money back. He can send you out the product you want. He will stop fucking up your life. He will finally give you a break. If you just bang on the machine and you tell him, "Look, I don't want to keep acting like this." And you bang, and finally a voice goes, "What? You don't? Well, wait a minute. Here." And it sends you out another product. "I'm tired of this product. Now I'm tired of this output." And it says, "Well, wait a minute. When you say so? Well, I've given you all my money all these years and I'm still not satisfied." "Well, geez, you should have said something. How much was it? Here it is, all back. Go somewhere else." Where else are you going to go? Now, why do you continue to believe that the owner is inside? Something else I guess it's safe for me to do, since there seems to be obviously no great danger of me becoming, I started to say continually, hell, I don't even periodically, become emotionally maudlin. So besides what I gave you as an encouragement and a kind of temporary template to look at human emotions, that is the three markings. That emotions, me challenging you to find how, or to find any emotion that would not fall within my three categories of marking off one's territory, one's sexual mate, or one's social position in the hormonal hierarchy. Let us say that there is a slight variation outside those three. Because some of you surely thought to yourself somewhere that I didn't make allowances for this. So let us say that there is a slight variation somewhere within those three categories. Now we could say it as a kind of, we're just talking, just let us say, a kind of non-sexual love that you would normally find amongst family or friends. Apparently non-sexual. By me telling you that you need to have or develop a continuing kind of clinical investigation and pick up some new understanding about what human emotions normally consist of, and by me also warning you or saying at the beginning of tonight's comments that was not to distract from the possible joy, the sometimes apparent beauty of human emotion, then along these same lines, let me also point out that people, everybody, you, people in other cities, people involved with nothing exceptional in life, and you people involved with this, which is exceptional. Everybody needs a kind of day-by-day assurance from somebody else, and this somebody else I'm throwing in this let us say category for the time being, of a non-sexual love. Of course, it could be sexual. It could be where you would be getting this if you're getting it. But there needs to be, everyone needs a day-by-day feeling of this kind of emotion that, for instance, when you leave the house, if you leave first, that there is somebody, family, friend, or as I said, it could even be sexual, but there's somebody that sees you off in some way and they wish you well. You can feel it where they say it. If it's just a kiss and a hug, that somebody notices when you leave the house. Are you gone? They ask. Or they look like, are you going? They, quote, see you off. And during the day, they think about you. You know it. They don't have to tell you. They may or they may not. But you know, you just know if you really think about it, not I ask, that this person thinks about you. Of course, one way you know it, if it's this kind of relationship, you think about them throughout the day. You just think about them. They just pop into mind. Where might she be right now? I wonder if she went to that new restaurant she was talking about. I wonder if she's out from the dentist now. I wonder if she's feeling bad. And then on the same kind of day-by-day basis, the feeling that you are going to be absolutely, unconditionally welcomed home when you get there, assuming the other person is there before you are. Everybody needs this kind of day-by-day emotion. Now, I know this does not sound revolutionary, and people would say all the way from situation comedies on American television circa 1987 to poetry from the Middle Ages to observation of Greek philosophers 200 BC. But after you see the categories, after you can, in a sense, discount the mechanical divisions, as I mentioned, as I noted, of humans, male and female, marking off their territory and their sexual partners and their own position in the hormonal hierarchy of human existence, there is still left this. But ordinary people just accept it as falling into one of those categories. As, yeah, I'm in love right now, and she or he ain't bad. Yeah, it was pretty nice for the first few months, but now I leave in the morning, I don't even think he notices when I go. Or I come home, and used to it was always hugs and kisses, and what kind of day did you have? And now I walk in, he hollers, did you bring me a beer? Everybody believes, well, that's life. That's ordinary life. But everybody needs, and everybody else is inclined to change partners continually. Everybody else is inclined to take it as simply the way things are. Another possibility is there are people who do not believe that they are in this kind of position to be receiving this kind of day-by-day positive feeling from some other person. And they believe, well, that's the way it is. They kick their own machine. They bang on it like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find somebody like this? Or why is it when I think I found somebody like this, they talk to me or take me to dinner once or twice and go, well, I'm having to move to Oklahoma City. See you some other time. I bring this out tonight. I'm not coming to any great conclusion with this. But to tell you that I am aware of this, and I am telling you there is a necessity, there is a biological, a neuroatomic, molecular need in everyone to varying degrees, but we'll just treat all of you like you're sort of mainstream in this regard, that you need this day-by-day kind of feeling from some other person, whether they be your sexual lover or it just be a friend. In this group it may be, some of you, it's just you may live together, share the same house, and may be somebody of the same sex. But it's somebody that you need it, literally, molecularly. Your blood needs it. Your hormonal health needs it. That somebody cares when you get up. Even if they don't have to get up when you do. That somebody is inclined to raise an eyebrow when you walk down the hall and they look at you like and wink, like you're on the way out to work, or you're gone, and they acknowledge the fact that you're going. They acknowledge the fact that you going means something to me. You're leaving. And I'm aware of it. I'm taking notice. You need that. It is not untoward, even though I don't encourage you to talk about it a lot. I don't encourage it verbally. It is good for you people if you don't have family available, if they're not still alive, or if they're not living near you now, or if you never had it with your family. But it's good that you people can get it amongst yourselves. As I said, not just sexually, but you can get it from just friends here with people involved with this. And the one part I said that I guess I will go ahead and mention, since I cannot be accused of being over-modeling. I don't think I'm accused of being modeling. That's oxymoronical, isn't it? Overly modeling. That's like exceptionally dumb. I started to say it's like the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, except there is one. But what I was going to say, besides it's good for you people to be able to get this amongst yourselves, is I might also point out to you, regardless of what some of your partnership may have told you, those of you seriously involved with this, you also get some of that I'll just leave it at that. Some of that from me. What else do you think I have to think about? Now, besides my one or two meaningless hobbies, I'm talking about meaningless. Some of you know what they are. Now, I'm talking about meaningless. And other than that, what else do you think takes up, you could say, my private neurological activity? It's you people. That feeling is necessary. It is necessary in keeping this group even together, besides what I was mentioning about people in general and you people in specific. Other than my little meaningless hobbies about when will I ever find that particular Julius Cheeks album I want, and I've got to find it, of course, for less than $2, or it doesn't even count. But other than stuff like that, or whether they're ever going to start importing that dark rum from Bermuda that used to be so good. But, you know, one or two little small hobbies like that. The rest of it, my whole energy, is this. And besides whatever may be going on that would seem to be, or I might say is of a non-specific nature, the rest of it is you people. I would like to ask, this almost should go in an epilogue, but I'm just going to press on. Are we making the most efficient use of us, that is you, of the number of you people, the talent of all of you people here and in the other cities? I'm talking about those seriously involved with this, those that are part of my own nervous system activity. Are we making the proper use of our own number, our own talent, our own intelligence? You know, groups of all kinds, including this, and including other kinds, but groups are normally arise and they're used to either praise and support the leader, politically, religiously, socially, any way that you can think of, that apparently a group has arisen for an ad hoc, or in an ad hoc situation, even though it may become temporarily permanent. It arises and it continues to apparently grow and to be viable on the basis that it is either praising, paying tribute to, paying homage to, submitting to, and supporting in all manners its leader, or it apparently turns its attention outward and then apparently attempts to assist humanity, that is, other people, that they seem to become charitable. They seem to become other-directed as opposed to self-directed, as opposed to supporting, praising a leader, a central focus of the group. The other possible groups apparently turn their attention and their efforts outwardly and then seem to want to support and to assist the rest of humanity. I'm not sure why I brought this up. I always like these little dramatic parts. And me saying things are just meaningless. Except they sound all right, they fit. I don't know why I brought this up. But I would like to ask you people this. Am I to be ultimately left as, reduced to being a mere word preacher? It's been some weeks since I was talking about specifically my paradigmatic world of revolutionaries, those in power, those in control, etc. And as interesting as I know some of you found it, I'll conclude tonight by asking you one drawn from those few weeks that I spent talking about that recently. And me pointing out such things as those in the would-be world of conspiracy out there, if it existed, the belief in such a thing, and then what might be the internal reality in the human nervous system that gets projected and reflected into this belief in external conspiracies. But I point out that if external conspiracies existed like that, the real power, capital R, capital P, the real power is invisible. It's only the control that is visible. And control comes and goes. You can lose it. And I know many of you find all that intriguing. Many of you even played with your own partnership of, hey, all this does fit. All this could be true externally. So I was going to throw you one more little piece to conclude. If you ever hear any bad news about them, then they were not the real power. Think about that, fatso. I didn't actually mean you were fat. It's a figure of speech, sir. It's a certain Albanian word, and part of the humor that you probably didn't know is that when you pronounce it very quickly, it sounds like fatso, but it's not actually what it meant. I've got a task. I've got a serious task, one of the most serious for this year. And some of you people who continue to coach, some of you people even here in town that have been here so long, you think that some of this, you just listen to it and you can do it in your head, and therefore you don't have to really do it. There are no exceptions. Nobody's going to coast through this. If you don't do it, we'll roll some heads. We will go to a bowling alley playing heads instead of bowling balls. Here it is, out of town and here. Immediately put yourself to it, and here's what it is. Now listen, as always, don't you do anything that could possibly hurt you, not just physically, but financially, socially, job-wise. So remember, that ain't the point. But now listen, you got to be sly enough to do this. It takes the brains, I guess, of a 2-year-old hamster to be able to accomplish this. Immediately, I want everybody involved with this here and in the other cities. I want you to select an organization, a group, which is foreign to you. Somebody that you've never been associated with, at least the particular branch that you're going to pick out. And the more foreign it is, it could even be better. That is, if you were raised Jewish, you might pick out a Baptist church. Get out of your neighborhood. You know, you people in New York, go over into Jersey or go over into Brooklyn, go somewhere away to where it's a fairly safe bet that you're not going to run into people you know. Taking into conjunction going to a different area of your metropolitan locale, and that you're going somewhere that you do not have friends, such as a Baptist church. All right, pick out a religion. It could be a political organization, but they need to have a certain edge to them. Don't just go and join up with the young Republicans. Find one of these real right-wing, one of them used to be called, I can't remember, well, the John Birchers, but then there were several more. Pick out somebody that's got an edge to it. They've got some spin on the ball. Don't just go join the young Republicans just because you were raised as a Democrat. And if you were raised Jewish or Episcopalian, don't just go and join a high Baptist church, if there was such a thing. Find some dirt rollers. Find some people that are be inclined to handle snakes if they could find any in Brooklyn or in Tarzana or in Coconut Grove. All right, here's what I want you to do. Decide who you're going to go join up with. But it needs to be an organization that seeks converts, that, as I said, has a certain eccentric spin, a little too much fanatical passion in what they do, like a right-wing so-called nut organization. Not dangerous, or a religion that's pretty down home and roll in the dirt and let's all handle snakes or bankers, whichever would be the most dangerous. But here's what I want you to do, just as soon as possible. You go over there. Let me just use an example of a Baptist. You find some down-home Baptist church, the educational level, you can look at it. You people are smart by now. You could drive over in some other area and you'll look at the church and you realize I would never go there. That's not my background. It's not my kind of people, genetically or any other way. Or you find out there are John Birchers, and you know enough to realize, of course, some of you may have grown up in such an environment, John Birchers, you can still almost hear their voices hollering about, hey, that conspiracy he's talking about is for real, damn it. So that doesn't count. It's got to be foreign to you. Or it could be some real left-wing liberal organizations if they're still alive in this day and time. But anyway, let's say the Baptist Church. And you go there and you pick them out, and then you go in, and here's your story. And don't fool around now, because you got to do this as soon as possible. Is go in and find somebody, find the minister, find the head deacon, find somebody with some authority, and here's the story you tell them. Whichever one of these two should fit any situation. You've just moved here from out of state. If they want to get specific, pick up Montana, North Dakota, somewhere that nobody knows. Or else you're down here visiting for the summer. Either one. And you say, and what you do is you present yourself as already being a part of their organization. You're not there as a convert to talk to them. Your participation, your upcoming participation would be a fait accompli. That I am a Southern Baptist. Or if they got a name like the Sam Smith Down Home Roll in the Dirt Baptist Union and Independent of America. You say, yeah, it's not the same one, but in other words, you identify yourself as being part of your organization. And I just moved here from outside of Bismarck. And God forbid you get around somebody that, say, well, hey, I was born there. Come on now, you got to be smart. And you say, really? And they say, yeah, I'd never be anybody from North Dakota. Then you say, oh, no, Bismarck, Idaho. At any rate, here's the point. Listen to me. This is serious. You go in and you tell them, and you've got to be passionate when you start now, that you want immediate responsibility, that you've just moved here. Let me go back to the religious example. That being a, let's say, a fundamentalist Baptist is important to you, damn it. I mean, it's your life. And you just moved here, and they're the closest. You're the first one you saw, and you don't want to even miss a beat. It's like a song going on. It's the melody of your life is being an active participant in the John Birchers, in this particular religious organization. And you're there, you shake their hand, and you've got to be excited about it. You can't walk in. This is not one of these things of me sending you out to a foreign church, and you sit there and observe and try to get some feel. You got to go in and participate. And you've got to tell them immediately. If they say something like, we're glad to have you, and start showing up, and we'll work you in some way, and you got to say no. Now, back when I was in Bismarck, what I was doing, I was in charge of the mimeograph machine. I was getting out the weekly newsletter that we hand out, and I was also generally in charge. We tried to spread it around, but nobody wanted to do it except me. I was the main one in charge of getting up other people, or if I had to do it, of handing out the brochures, inviting people to church. And I just can't, the Lord put it on my heart, I just can't sit around and do nothing. Now, I know I just walked in off the street, but, God help us, we're all in this together, and I'm here to work. I'm talking about immediately, not next week. I'm talking about now, or I just don't feel right. The Lord's laid it on me. Or if it's a political thing, you say, I understand the pressing communist conspiracy. I know that I can't take a week off. Just because I moved here, I want to join right in because I know that there's as many communists hiding up here around Brooklyn and Long Island, and especially up in the Bronx. I know as much as there are, that's where I came from. In other words, you tell them, and you insist, and this is real hard to do, that you insist you want immediate responsibility. You immediately want jobs right then. You don't want them to send you off. What can I do right now? Give me some handbills. Give me something. Give me some bumper stickers. You got me. I want you to participate, horizontally speaking, for 4 weeks. I want you to spend at least 11 hours. You can keep up with that. And get over there as much as possible. If it's a church, it may not be meeting but twice a week. And if you can humanly arrange it, get over there both nights if it's just an hour. And of course, you don't have to stop at 11. The thing is, for a month, for 4 weeks, as much as would be appropriate, as often as they're meeting, or there's something to do, I want you there. It's not just off on your own. Don't go out and hand out pamphlets for that church unless they know about it. Make them know that you're going to do it. Try to get somebody else to go with you in there. But you actively, passionately participate. Or if you go join up with the John Birchers, of course, you're not saying you join up. You're just saying, I'm here. Thank God there's a John Birchers here. You don't know how lonely it was out in Bismarck. It was just me and 2 old women. And both of them had arthritis. You have got to be passionately involved with this, and there's no exceptions to this. If you're alive and you can walk around, all of you here and in the other cities, you do this immediately. And I want you to send me immediately a report of some kind. Drop me a card and tell me what it is you're going to join up with. Back in business. I want you to, for a minimum of 11 hours spread over 4 weeks, I want you to be an active, passionate participant with those fuckers, those people. I want you to be a proselytizer. And if they're not doing much proselytizing, I assume you don't have to look that up, it's fairly clean, I want you to initiate it. Well, by God, let's get out and hand out some stuff. I'll lead, I'll do it. Give me some people. Come on, let's go do it. Let's make up some bumper stickers. I'll put them, hell, I'll cover my car. We'll put them everywhere. Do that. That's the beginning, that's the end of the task. Except, of course, this, when the 4 weeks are up, walk away from it. Just for my own protection, I had to throw that in. One other thing, in the midst of all the dark nights of the soul and as much self-pity as I deserve to have, the little thing I mentioned, when I was telling you people not to try and help each other, and God forbid you ever try to give me some kind of unsolicited assistance, and I said, of course, that doesn't include if any of you want to chip in together and get me a Corvette. From New York, to show that there is some justice and appreciation in life. The rest of you,